Hello and welcome to Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global, and I invite you to get comfortable and listen in on candid conversations I have with fascinating women from around the globe. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, humanitarians, athletes, and a whole lot of regular people. Tune in as they let their guard down and open up on aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure success, and what they have learnt along the way. These conversations aim to inspire you to embrace opportunities and possibilities beyond the limits of your imagination. Reclaim your power, strength, and vulnerability. Stand in your truth and propel yourself towards the life you dream to live. Hello and welcome everyone to Women's Biz Podcast. Annie Gibbins here. I love sharing with you every week, and today we are going to be talking about organic content marketing. It's so exciting. What a great topic. And we have Lauren Gaggioli, and she is a digital entrepreneur who loves building online businesses and supporting her fellow solopreneurs, which most of you are, sharing her gifts with the world because she's actually an expert in organic content marketing, and we all need to be better at it. She's leveraged SEO and organic marketing to grow and sell her first business, which was Higher Scores Test Prep, an online ACT and SAT prep company. And she now supports all of people like you, fellow online entrepreneurs, with a strategy through her consulting services. And she has one called the Organic Marketing Ecosystem course. It's all sounding very impressive. We're going to hear all about that and her virtual masterminds that she helps people with. When she's not doing that, she's a woman of many hats. You can find her training for her next run, the Disney Half Marathon. That sounds pretty exciting. She also loves channeling serious Molly Weasley vibes. She likes to knit up a sweater or two. She likes to pot around the garden. She likes to brew beer with a hubby, make lots of stuff in the kitchen. Oh, she's an awesome lady coming from Seattle, Washington. Welcome to the program, Lauren.
Thank you, Annie. I am so excited to be here, if for no other reason than just to bask in your beautiful accent. It's my favorite.
That Aussie accent. I always love sharing with women around the globe. So let's just dive into that whole topic of organic marketing, right?
Yes.
So why is this the cornerstone of your experience? Why have you focused in and went, you know what, we all need to be better at this, and this is what I'm going to become a master at?
So it's a great question, and it's one that I couldn't have answered probably until about 3 years ago, when I was looking around and kind of going, okay, I'm ready to exit the company I'm working in, and I have tremendous ease. Like, I had accomplished the 4-hour work week. You know, I was living my best life, full-time momming, driving income from the internet, which is amazing. And like it took a coach going, Lauren, your numbers are really good. Like, why do you want to sell this company? You have what a lot of people are looking to generate. And I knew that I wasn't in alignment and that it wasn't the right fit for me anymore from just what I believe about education. However, there was still a takeaway embedded in my experience of that company. And the takeaway was that my focus early and often on making friends with Google is what allowed me to have ease and abundance in my life. And so while I was in the wrong space, I knew I could lift that little gem out of that experience and move it over and actually work in a domain I'm far more passionate about, which is facilitating other digital entrepreneurs finding their prospects at the exact right time that those prospects need them, and coming to SEO with this like heart-centered approach.
Awesome. I love it when you can just be in a fantastic space and everyone says you're living the dream, and you're like, you know what, I am, but I think there's something better, and I'm still going to keep leaning into that and finding that what that means, and becoming best friends with Google, which is a really great concept, because that's exactly it. If I'm interested in a service today, what am I going to do? I'm going to Google it. right? Before anything
Absolutely.
else. I think a lot of us focus on our website is so pretty or our social is. Well, that's great if you've actually that person has found you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're actually saying, you know what, you need to be right in front of their fingertips and position yourself. So I'd love you to share a little bit more about, have I got that right? Is that how it differs from other marketing strategies?
Absolutely. So I think the question is, how long does your content live? That's part of it. But also, can people find you when they type that query into Google? Because there are a lot of frivolous things that we can buy off social that are really fun, that if you run into them because the algorithm spits them up at the right time or an ad is placed in your feed, you're like, oh, that's a $2 something. Cool. Right? That's one way to market. But a lot of us are trying to sell higher ticket items that require a larger pain point and also the ability for people to find you when they need you, not to count on the algorithm to throw you in front of the right person at the right time. The social channels, I think, are really great for nurturing. They're great for continuing communication. They're great for having kind of these more back and forth person-to-person conversations. But the reality is, if you don't have inbound leads, you've got a problem. Your business is not going to be as successful as it possibly could. Now, people might come to your digital doorstep and take a look at what you have to offer and say, right thing, wrong person, right? And that's totally, I mean, everybody's not for everybody. But if you are being authentic in the way you meet queries and the way you facilitate transformation, whether it's through a simple blog post answering a question or a sales page that is SEO optimized, that when somebody has a credit card in hand and types something into Google, they're able to land on your sales page and then make that determination for themselves. That's where the real magic lies. And you can see that's not going to happen in social, right? There's really very little way to control that. And the way I like to think about it is that the algorithm on social is always bent towards keeping you on a social platform. However, Google is a matchmaker. His algorithm is based on handing people off as quickly as possible to the right solution provider. And if I have to choose based on my limited time which space I want to play in, I'm always going to go to the one that elevates the quality content and is a pass through to a sphere that I totally control, which is my website.
Beautifully explained. I hope you're taking notes, everybody, whether you're watching in on YouTube or on LinkedIn Live, or if you're on one of our social, our audio platforms. Tell you what, I always love pen in hand, take a note, because we're talking about prioritizing SEO over social. And I think we spend so much time on social, and that's exactly true, Lauren. You do end up then just staying on social, whereas SEO, Google, it's kind of like, I need something, where is it? Take me exactly to the destination I want in the quickest period of time, and actually take me to the best one that suits my needs as the consumer. How did you arrive at this strategic approach then? Was it sudden, the light bulbs went on? Was it that you couldn't have done it as well in your old business? Like, what was happening that you went, you know what, this actually is the gold?
So that's a really great question. I had to sort of back solve for this solution and be like, oh, this is what I was doing right. But I came to SEO through little breadcrumbs. I had a website designer who was like, hey, I did some quick really high level SEO keyword research. And I was like, what is that? And she found a keyword that was being under leveraged by the big guys. So for anybody, especially in the States, who knows the test prep providers, like, you need to know, as a solopreneur, my website was getting 16,000 people per month through the door for 3 years running, in a space dominated by corporate entities that have entire marketing departments.
Incredible.
So there's a ton of opportunity. And when I realized, I went on vacation for 2 weeks and made my mortgage in that time, checking my email 4 times. When that happened, I was like, wait a minute, this couldn't have happened if somebody didn't send those leads to me at the right moment. And so I think there were lots of little things, a lot of just like happenstance that I went, oh, I'm going to do this tiny little thing right and signal to Google who I am and what I do. I'm going to think about the questions that I get right before someone's ready to buy and then answer those in a long form blog post and give really a lot of help up front. That will be helpful when people send me the queries via email, but also then it's out there for the public as well. So I was sort of piecing together this whole like chain of events. And now looking back on it, I've been able to reverse engineer it and really focus it on connecting research, like data keyword research, all the way to revenue. How do we create that arc for our end users? How do we roll out the red carpet for our prospects, these cold leads that are coming through the door? How do we welcome them? How do we make them feel as cozy as if we were welcoming them to a storefront on Main Street? Because ultimately that's what your website is. And if you can do that in a very personable way, people know the difference, especially nowadays where AI is generating a ton of content. If it is bland and tasteless, then you have a real problem. And this is where SEO, sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to do all this keyword research and then I have to write like a robot. Actually, if you can marry the data with heart and bring your personality to bear, what you can actually do is create even more conversion, even more buy-in, because people see the difference now.
Exactly. I think now we're all using, ChatGPT and others, as soon as you see something written, in the realm of the modern digital landscape, it's a classic. It's like, okay, that's come from ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I've never seen the word realm used so many times. But that's a classic. It's like, getting these keywords into it, but still being you, showing up as you. So therefore, I'd love to talk a little bit more about the effectiveness of keywords, because we've been going around that. But for those who go, you know what, I'm actually not even sure how to do that. Why is it so vital? How do those keywords work? How do you even find your keywords? Is it like something that if I wanted a global women's coach, that would be what Annie would say. I'm a brand elevation specialist. That's what I would say. And then I have my context around that. I'd love you to put that into your words.
Absolutely. So keyword research, if you've ever wondered, what are people asking for on the internet when they need me, right? What are they actually typing in? Then that is exactly what keyword research is. You can see the exact queries that are going into the Google search bar if you know where to look. So the tool I use is Ahrefs, which is a really terrible name to say, but if you include a link in the show notes, it's ahrefs.com. And if you search for that and keyword generator, the thing I love about this is that it's a free tool. I use the paid version, but you're going to be pulling from the exact same data I can see. It's just going to be less comprehensive, but it'll give you a good tip of the iceberg. These are the things that people are typing in. So there's the actual keyword or key phrase, and then there are two numbers after it. There's the KD, which is the keyword difficulty. On a scale of 1 to 100, how hard is it to rank for this? Lower is better. And then there's the monthly search volume. And that is an average of the last 12 months of queries for this particular term. How many times a month is it searched? Higher is better for volume. But don't feel like you have to find something with millions of hits. What you want to think about is the fact that if you could get, honestly, 30 people to your web page, then you are doing better than 97% of the web pages on the internet. 97% of the web pages on the internet get 10 or less, and that's only the top 1.5%. The 96.5%, or I'm losing track of the math here, but something like 95%, 96% of web pages on the internet get zero traffic from Google.
Incredible.
So think small, think tiny wins, right? And then you sort of start to build the snowball. You have a couple of really good winners, and then you add a little more content and add a little more content. It's not sexy, right? This is the unsexy side of business. Writing an amazing blog post that's going to pop in 6 months That's what the name of the game is. And it's doing that every month so that you are generating more and more traffic as you go. But what this does, it leads to what I call the Nostradamus effect, where it's like you're reading someone's mind. Because when they type that query into Google and your blog post pops as number one, and they go, that's exactly what I just typed in, it creates this like mutual, like beneficial thing where they're going, I know this person has the answer. You're sitting there, it's like you read their mind, but it also builds affinity because you're using the exact same language. So it builds up that know, like, and trust factor, and not in a smarmy way, just in a like, I see you, I see the struggle that you have, and I have a solution that can help. Here's how I would answer that question. And then you go through your blog post, you create a list of whatever your top 5 ways of getting out of a rut, or whatever the case may be, whatever it is you do. And then at the end, there's an invitation to join in a more connected way. Join your email list, get some sort of freebie that will allow you to have that exchange of email address currency for something free. And so it all starts with keyword research, but the spiral from there is really where the power is, because it's not just about getting traffic. Traffic, who cares, right? At the end of the day, I want to increase your reach and your revenue. Those are the 2 things I'm really interested in. And 100%. SEO is a conduit for that.
Yeah, and think about that, all our wonderful listeners. You want Google to be working with you when you're here writing those podcasts or blogs or any of your content, or whether you're on holiday. You want it 24/7. You want it to go, you know what, I'm setting up a system, if you like, that is going to work for me, whether I'm in the office or out of the office, because we're all juggling many hats. I know you've got kids, pets, busy lifestyle, same as I, same as all of our listeners around the world. We are going to definitely start hearing some feedback, hopefully on the chat through this episode. Reach out to us if you're wanting more help with that, because it's such an area that can be overwhelming, though. It's like, oh, right, I'm going to have to start doing that. And then you suddenly start applying it and you can get some challenges. What biggest challenges do you notice that entrepreneurs have, and how do you help them with overcoming them?
So I think there are 2. There's getting over the hurdle to start, because SEO, let's be honest, it's a lot of bro marketers, and they make it seem real. They talk really fast with like all these high-tech terms, and you're going, oh my God, this feels like I'll never get over the hurdle. Why bother? I won't even start. And I think that getting started is the hardest part. You do need just a little bit of know-how, but I totally come at this with the Pareto principle in mind, right? Can we do the 20% that moves you 80% of the way there? And let's call it good enough SEO, right? Like, if you're doing anything to elevate your website, you're doing more than most people on the internet. So just get started. So there's that aspect, but then I think there's a second layer that since this is a group of ladies, then I think a lot of you, especially those of you who are moms, might be familiar with this. There's this idea of we want to measure the lagging output rather than the leading input. And there's a delay. So if any of you remember the smile effect, if anybody has babies, right? Babies lose weight when they're born. So it creates a parabola, right? They bottom out and then they start going up. But if you're measuring disparate weights, your baby could be on the other side of that uptick and the linear trend is still downwards. Right? So for us, we still see a flat line of traffic. And we're like, well, it's been 2 months. I've not been doing enough. It hasn't gone yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't starting. It isn't starting to tip you up. So one of the things that I see is people, they don't stay consistent because they don't see the results as quickly as they think they should. But the truth is, and the problem with this is, you stop and Google goes, oh, that site's not being updated. So some of the progress you made might not actually come to fruition. Or if it does, by the time it does, now you're chasing because now you have this dearth of new content. And so it's really important that if you're going to start to execute an SEO strategy, which I highly recommend every online entrepreneur do, if you start to execute a strategy, commit for 12 months. to doing it. It doesn't have to be a ton, right? Podcasting counts, video counts. You need fresh content on your site delivered with a strategy in mind. You need to do it at least one piece of content a month. And know that it's not going to drop out the bottom of the Google algorithm, right? We are so used to thinking as social media, right? 24 to 72 hours and it's gone. Flush, whoosh, I got to start over again. Yeah. With this, it's actually the opposite, because once it starts to ramp up, it starts to grow on its own and it starts to really take off. Doesn't mean you can't still do social if you love it or integrate it in some way, but it's the kind of thing where like just keep executing, keep iterating, keep delivering, and it will pay you, and it will pay you for a long time. That little girl who came in here, she was born in the middle of that 3-year window where I was getting 16,000 people a month through the doors through organic search. I did not develop much content, if any, in the first year and a half of her life. But I still got the traffic. And I was able to sell my company based on the strength of those numbers. And so we can't walk away from social for a year and a half and expect Zuckerberg to be continually sending people to our way. Like, it's not going to happen. So I would rather play with Google, and then I can amplify the core of what I'm creating on my site through those other channels. It's absolutely fine to have them. But if we have to choose where to spend our time, which we always do, I'm always going to play in the space Google that first can reward me for a longer period of time.
Oh, brilliant. Google first, then tell everyone about it, social, to amplify. I think that's a great piece of simple advice. An example for me would be that, well, I want to, my blog will come out every week on the website, and then I tell everybody about it on social. Or I put my podcast out every week and then you put it on social. So it's kind of like it's there, something is happening. So even as a minimum, and that's quite a lot of commitment, but even if it was a minimum, I love what you said there, like once a month. It's kind of like, I've just moved house and it's a bit like, gardening. Now I'm looking at gardens and styling and bits and pieces. I love it when you do something new, suddenly it becomes really important, even though it was probably important before. But it's like, okay, well, if you water your plants every week, even once a week, you mow your grass, whatever, you do things that just make it lived in, loved, happy, people notice it. Whereas if you go, I did it a couple of times and it didn't make much difference, or no one noticed, so I won't do it for a while, then suddenly the weeds are there and people have left. I think it's just that constant, I think sometimes we're wanting instant reward, instant gratification. We've got this perfectionist view that, well, if I can't be a total gun at SEO or whatever, then why bother? Or, I go, well, does my playing a little bit small matter? Yeah, because that's right. Even if you've got 2 extra eyeballs on it, 5 extra eyeballs, if they're the right ones, that's going to change your revenue massively for most people. So I seriously encourage you, all our beautiful listeners, to really think about this and go, okay, well, what's one thing I could do every week that's really going to just, be on Google, make people notice me, and then start putting the right words in so it will be something that they will find. So it's all about embracing the long game rather than the short game, isn't it? It's about, valuing, that you complete these tasks consistently. Is that how you see it? That it's all about, make sure, rather than being perfect every single time, it's like, just make sure that what you're doing is accurate, compelling, meeting people's needs.
Yes. I will tell you, I'm the least consistent person on the planet in terms of I feel like a calendar is a straitjacket, which is odd given how much time I spend living by my calendar, which is just like a necessary evil in this stage of life. Kids got to go someplace. I got to go someplace. We're going to need a calendar. But I will tell you, the idea of publishing every Tuesday at 1, is that ideal? Absolutely. But even if you can't hit that, can you, like I said, create a piece of content, some content somewhere in, one time a month? Can you do that? Can you think about working on your business, not in your business, as you develop this content? And so ideally, yes, you would be consistent and you'd show up every single week, twice a week. But even if you can't, know that there is absolutely benefit to showing up and doing that tiny little bit. The idea of, like, my friend Jen always says, small hinges swing big doors, right? Can you take this small piece and just say, I'm going to do this at least once every month? And I think, some of us
It's
like to rise
doable.
to a challenge, and some of us prefer to be like, what's the easy button? So
Yeah.
regardless of where you are on that spectrum, pick one and then just go for it. But do be informed by those keywords, because you'll be shocked by what people are putting in. I think about the keyword data kind of like mining. Sometimes you're like dropping these cores and you're like, where the heck is the good stuff? And then suddenly you hit the vein of gold and you start going sideways and you find all these opportunities that nobody else is leveraging. So there's always room to improve. And if you feel like you're screaming into a void when you publish, SEO is probably the answer, because it's going to point you in the right direction. It's going to show you where those little golden nuggets are.
Exactly. So if you're hearing crickets, everyone, might be because you're just doing a lot of effort, and it's so frustrating because you're doing all the pretty stuff, but people are just not finding it. They've got to find you first, and then they appreciate how gorgeous and passionate, purpose-driven you are, because I know you all are. And so it can be really frustrating. So this is a conversation which is really great. It's about saying, become less frustrated. Start getting a bit more balanced, be more, purpose-driven in how we're actually going to target those people. Which brings me to the final sort of part of our conversation, which is all about aligning our personal and professional growth, right? You're a mom. We've all got busy lives. There can be a real correlation between our personal and our business growth. So how do you help to align that so that you can really be intentional with your business? And I love the way that you could get it into, 4 hours. Absolutely brilliant. And that's actually really encouraging for people, because a lot of people think, I've got to put in ridiculous hours for a business to be successful, whereas you don't.
Yeah. I think it really comes down to knowing yourself and looking back in the archives and really kind of sifting through what's already there. We've had clues our entire lives as to what we are supposed to do. I've always been an educator. Always. And I had no desire to teach in a school. And so I've created other opportunities to explore that in my life. I teach myself, I teach my kids, I homeschool my kids, and I help entrepreneurs. I think if you can look at the things that really light you up and then find a way to move into alignment with that more. At the beginning, you're going to have to bootstrap often, and you're going to have to do some of the things. You're going to have to eat the frog occasionally. You're going to have to go, yep, didn't want to do my books today, but I can't afford that yet. So here I am, because what I want to do, what I am building towards, is meaningful enough for me to undergo that, right?
Yes.
But the more authentic you can be, the more in alignment with your true self, which requires knowing yourself. Doing that self-work is incredibly important. And it's probably lowest on the list, on the to-do list. I've started just putting my personal development first thing in the morning. I'm reading a nonfiction book because it's what I need to have a better day. And I think as women, we often feel like we have to push ourselves to the margins. We feel fragmented, or like we have to deliver based on context, right? I used to like kind of shape shift, like, oh, I'm being daughter Lauren now, and I'm being mom Lauren now, and I'm being business owner Lauren now. And, it's so fragmented. It's all us, right? So how do we name our purpose in a higher level way such that it is how we conduct ourselves no matter the context we're in? And so my purpose is that I help others actualize their unrealized potential, which means I need to get curious about who people are and lean in and say, like, what's already amazing? And then how can I help them be found? And when I say that that's my purpose, and I do SEO, you can see like, Lauren goes in, she looks at websites that already exist, she helps them get found. When I'm homeschooling my kids, it's all about excavation and archaeology rather than architecting them into something I want them to be, right? I want to understand who they are and facilitate their growth in whatever direction that that is. And so when you know that about yourselves, when you can state that clearly, you can step back and then go, okay, and now how does what I do in my personal life, my business life, just when I'm hanging out, how does all of that fit together? And it just gives you this like sense of peace and knowing when you've lived in your purpose in a day. So you can like check mark and be like, cool, did something productive today, even if it was 15 minutes of reading a book on the weekend and I do nothing but sit on the couch for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I did something. I feel
Exactly. Well, how awesome is Lauren Gaggioli, everyone? Like, oh my goodness, so clear, so concise, gives us tips. It's not overwhelming. I hope you've absolutely loved this episode the way I have. I think that's it. It's like just do a little bit small. If in doubt, even just ask your customers, your latest customer, if they've searched for you online, go and say, what did you write? I noticed that too. I was writing business coach, and then all my people want Annie's energy. And I wrote high energy business coach. And suddenly like going, I was looking for a high energy business coach, right? And so it's like, oh my gosh, like things like that. It can be just like one word, 2 words, something different that is really specific, something that's specific to your clients, whatever that is. Definitely use the apps, and I'll put them in the show notes for you, everyone, because I'm going to be going to that today as well.
You have to. It's amazing.
Learning from each other, and that's what I love about this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lauren. I have loved our conversation.
This was lovely. Thank you so much for having me, Annie.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global. And if you would like to fast track your future success, pop on over to womensbizglobal.com, where you can find out how our coaching, media and publishing opportunities are helping women just like you to become and be seen as the trusted authorities in their niche. Inquire today and start reining in the abundance you desire.